To all of you, myself, I am Dr. Sanjib Pattnaik. I welcome all of you to this particular session that we shall be having today. Now, as if somebody has gone through the previous sessions of our particular course, this is Operations Management, the course name, and it has been coded as MMPO 003. Uh, in this particular course, we did have four different modules comprising of the basics of operation management. Now, what are the techniques? What are the quality management aspects, etc. Uh, we are going to discuss today the last block that are issues in operations management, whereby we'll be discussing the various emerging trends and technologies in operations. Uh, Here we can say the technological advancement, the scientific researches has led to a rapid growth in the operations management field. From the earlier days of operations management, when it was managed by human resources, now we are having the trends whereby operations are run in many organizations by various types of robots, computers, artificial intelligence, etc. Now, this trends has seen a exponential growth since the mid 80s of the 20th century. And here we can say that during the last half decade or at most 50 years, everyone can feel what is the kind of change we are having in the operations management field. So we shall be discussing about what are the various emerging trends and technologies in operations. Uh, when we are talking of operations, we are talking of industries. Now, the basic uh, functionality of an industry is it gets the input, converts them through the processes to get outputs, desired outputs of products or services. In earlier days, we are talking of products only, but now the thing has changed to the products as well as the services. And the services sector is rapidly growing today to cater to the needs of the customers. We shall try to trace out first in this particular session how industry has developed or evolved in the course of history, and how this industry, the development of the industrial revolution, is at the present juncture. So those are the things we shall begin to discuss at the outset. If we look at earlier days, uh, That means from the start of the civilization till we can say mid of 1800s or 1700s, uh, mostly the production was uh, focused on handicrafts, the handicraft items. And those who were producing those handicraft items, they would go for the exchange system or the barter system with various kind of agricultural production or products which were predominantly there in the earlier days. We are not having much of various different type of products which could make our life easier in those times. In those times, it was focused on satisfying the basic needs of the human beings. When we are talking of basic needs, we are talking of the food, the clothing, and the shelter. People were satisfied with that, and usually the barter system or the exchange system of predominantly the handicraft goods and agricultural products were taking place, and everybody was looking for food, clothes, and shelter, and how to uh, manage with whatever things they were getting. However, the various scientific philosophies, inventions, researches which were cropping up during the mid 70s to mid 80s ushered in the various kind of mechanized products. That means products which were produced in the machines. Now, this particular era of between 1760 to 1840, we tried to call it as the Industrial Revolution, or we shall name it now for the time being as Industrial Revolution, the first or 1.0. Now, this Industrial Revolution, they particularly began in Great Britain between the period around, as we are talking about, the mid 1700s to mid 1800s. All of us know that in history, Great Britain was such a country where it was aptly said that sun would never, what we can say, set in a Britain's land. What it meant? Now, starting from the Japan coast to the American coast, Great Britain had its colonies. So, out of the 24 hours in a day, Great Britain would be facing definitely a daytime period at a certain colony. It was such a powerful colonial force. However, apart from the colonial ambition, Great Britain also was aspiring for scientific development of products which could ease the lifestyle, products which could be produced and be traded in the colonial countries to bring much of the wealth from the colonies to Great Britain. So, this industrial revolution by the second half of the 18th century, it had spread to the United States. How? The many people from the European continent, mainly Great Britain, France, etc., they were in search for the golden land of unknown that was America in those days. Later on, it became United States of America. So, in search of wealth, people from Great Britain or European continent, they moved on, or few population of theirs, they tried to move to the American continent. Thereby what? Now they took the philosophy of the industrial researches, industrial setup, industrial advancement to the United States of America. Now, during the Industrial Revolution, the world saw mechanization of production. That means the various items that were thought of or developed by scientific invention were done or produced by the use of machine. In the earlier days, we discussed that the production was mainly handicraft focused. For handicrafts, it took the skills, the imagination of a particular individual. However, the use of mechanization of production led to what? Not to produce goods or products in large numbers, thereby satisfying much of the needs of major population. And these machines were particularly run by the use of steam power. Uh, the development of steam locomotives, the steam ships, that means the ships which were powered by steam boilers. Similarly, machines which were powered by the steam power. That was the base on which the mechanization of production was built up. It was a transition from handicraft economy to mechanized economy. So the first industrial revolution saw that the world was changing from a handicraft based economy to the mechanized economy. What were the main features? Some of them we have tried together. You can add to that. Conversion of muscle power to machines. In handicraft economy, muscle power was needed in many production, but by the use of machines, the muscle power which was generated by individuals and may differ from individuals to individuals or may suffer due to breakdown of a individual's body. The machines, they constantly try to produce the same amount of power using the steam energy. So the focus came to steam power generation. So much of the machines, ships, railways, they were using the boilers. That means where water is heated to produce steam that produced the power to run the various machines. And the manufacturing, which was earlier done by handicraft economy or the handicrafts, was now changing to industrial manufacturing. All these things needed production of iron because they have to be used in construction of facilities, machines, boilers, etc. So, iron production processes were introduced during the first industrial revolution. Large or big industries started to come up with volume of production very high. In those days, uh, the important aspect of clothing, suppose we take the example of India, in those days, the clothing was particularly a village based industry or a state based industry in India. India was abundant in production of cotton. However, they could produce the woven clothes, but the volume of production was very less. So, since India had become a colony of Great Britain, what Britishers did, they uh, took the cotton away from India. By the use of machines, they converted those cottons into clothes and in very high volume. They brought it down again to India and sold it off, thereby reaping huge profits. So, cotton spinning mechanization was there in the industrial revolution. One of the most important thing that came up during the first industrial revolution was the invention of computer by Charles Babbage. So he used machines, and the machines were using the punch card technique in order to compute various information. Even though the machines were very large, complex, and not easy to handle, but it laid the foundation for the advancement of computers into the future. So these are some of the features of Industrial Revolution 1.0. Let us see what happened next. After the 1850s, the Industrial Revolution, which was ushered in by the steam power uh, based industries, the second Industrial Revolution, that we name it as Industrial Revolution 2.0, started around 1870s in the United Kingdom, United States, and Germany. Here, much focus was now on technological revolution. New technologies were cropping up. Advanced technologies were coming up to produce various items. And one of the major things that happened during Industrial Revolution 2 is the use of electricity or electric power to run the machines instead of steam power. So, this was an era where the electric power was coming into the picture. Uh, During the Industrial Revolution 1.0, the previous one as compared to this, the working condition of the workers, like payment, like workplace sanitation, etc., like the ergonomics, like the working environment, all were put away with, done away with in Industrial Revolution 1.0. It was viewed that workers are there only to produce the items. They cannot complain anything. However, this was creating certain kind of drawbacks in the minds of the workers. So a development was or has cropped up during Industrial Revolution 2.0, that is the introduction of Factory Act 1833, whereby the act asked the government of various lands or various countries for maintaining efficient facilities and standardized working hours of the employees. They tried to treat employees as human beings instead of going on working day in and day out 24 hours a day. They said no, the worker can at most have a productive hour during the day of maximum 8 hours or less than that. So they tried to standardize the working hours of the employees. Now let us look at some of the features of the Industrial Revolution 2.0. In the first Industrial Revolution, we started using the steam power. But in Industrial Revolution 2, the things changed to, instead of steam power, industries started to use electricity and various petroleum power. When I say petroleum power, that means power generated by the diesel or the petrols. Then the focus was on huge volume of production. That means mass production. Suppose we set up a company, that company focus would be produce only a particular variety of item or a particular item, thereby increasing the number of production. Similarly, apart from mass production, whereby only a single product or a few products were only being produced by the industry, there was introduction of assembly lines like that we had in Ford industry, the Ford car industry. Various industries started using assembly lines. That means instead of producing each and every part of a final product, what they tried to do, they uh, produced the final item by using the various components, items that were being uh, sourced in from various suppliers. So the components and the items were only assembled to form the final product or the final production item. Now, in this particular revolution, steel manufacturing came into the forefront. Iron had a drawback. Iron manufacturing was a feature of Industrial Revolution 1.0. However, it had a drawback in the sense that iron got rotten due to exposure to various kind of atmospheric conditions, and it needed much maintenance. But in Industrial Revolution 2.0, due to newer technology, came up the steel manufacturing, where the steel were resistant to the impact of environmental impacts study and could be used for various purposes. Due to this increase in the number of industries, various authorities or various government of various states or nations, they tried to improve the transportation facility. They tried to focus on construction part, either construction of uh, buildings for workers to stay, construction of office spaces, etc. Now, this is an era where we saw few of the things which galvanized the world into the 20th century. Those were some of them I have taken up. Introduction of sewing machines. Now, instead of in the handicraft manufacturing days, all were hand stitched. Now, what happened? Machines were used for stitching various kind of clothes. Thereby, the time to produce was very less, and it increased the volume of production. Another one is typewriters. If you look at various books, writings, etc., in the earlier days, those were handwritten. And handwritten depends upon the individual who has written the thing. It may be readable or not readable also sometimes, because due to change in handwriting from individual to individual. So a new thing came into the place of the industry, that is typewriter, where we had standardized uh, form of printable items, which made it easy to write or type, and everyone was able to read that at ease without any complications. Another thing which one may say that played a significant contribution towards the what we are looking at is telephones. It made the communication easier, faster. Not in the earlier days like Industrial Revolution period 2.0. However, in those times it was faster and it was a better thing. Now this communication process transformed itself, and now at present era we will not be wrong if we say the whole world is running by communication technology. Now let us look at the Industrial Revolution 3.0. which has happened maybe few years back. We may not be born during that period, but may say that around 80 years back, 90 years back, the Industrial Revolution 3.0 started around 20th century, and during the 70s the computing power was on an ascent. Most of the corporates, companies, organizations, they were having data which was piling up, which was huge in nature, and they required computing power, which was not possible by human beings. So this particular revolution, that is Industrial Revolution 3.0, is referred to as digital revolution. This related to partial automation, information technology, and electronics introduction. When we say partial automation, we may say that suppose uh, we have a bread toaster in our house. Put two loaves of bread in that, switch on the power. After the bread loaf is done nicely, automatically it will pop up. However, it is not always possible for us to be standing near the toaster machine. The toaster machine will wait for few seconds, and if the toaster has a design that after this many seconds or this many minutes, the power will automatically switch off, thereby reducing the consumption of power in the toaster. So that is partial automation. Information technology came into the picture, and various kind of electronic components were coming forward, like transistors, transmitters, etc., which were trying to give us various new kind of thing like TVs, computer screens, etc. What are the various features of Industrial Revolution 3.0? The first is, in the first Industrial Revolution we saw it was steam power that was being used. In the second Industrial Revolution we saw the introduction of electricity power and power generated by petroleum products like petrol and diesel. But now the focus was changing, because electricity, even if it can be found from various sources like or generated from various sources like coal based electric production. Coal is a natural resource which may end up if we don't use it logically. If we use hydroelectricity power, chances of the required amount of water may not be available. Chances that there is an accident in the reservoir or the dam. All these things were creating various kind of drawbacks for the energies. Some may say that we can go for petroleum products. But petroleum products, suppose as we call it black gold, they are dug up from the oil wells wherever it is present as reservoir. But these are limited. If we don't use it wisely, that also may run out in the future. In short future, we can say. So the focus of Industrial Revolution 3.0 shifted towards renewable energy, like wind energy. That means many of us might have seen the wind turbines that are being set up near the seashores or places where there is windy condition at most of the times. Similarly, one of the major renewable energy source that the world is now looking forward is solar energy. So using the solar panels, the technology started to generate the power. So use of renewable energy ushered in during the Industrial Revolution 3.0. Partial automation was there. As we said, components started having some kind of automation in their features. Increased productivity. That means we tried to reduce the wastages. When wastage was reduced, the the outputs in comparison to the input was increasing. Thereby, we could say that we are better utilizing the items, the inputs, the productivity has increased. Next feature is faster lead times. Now here, the customer needs and requirements was gaining importance. Now no longer organization could force the customers to use their products because nothing else is available. What was happening now? Now more and more companies were coming up with their products having lots of features which were in accordance with the customer requirements. And we know that customers can change their requirements from an organization to another organization. So the organization started to produce at a faster rate and deliver it to the customers as fast as possible so that they do not change their minds. So lead time is the time between the placing of order by a customer and the deliver of the item or delivery of the item to the customer. We are now looking at the World Wide Web, the internet, whereby we could send messages, we could see what kind of things are happening at any place where internet facilities were there. We are finding we could send various kind of reports, etc., with a fraction of a second by use of internet. So the communication facility was on an ascent. And one of the most important feature of industrial revolution uh, 3.0 was the infusion of smartphones. You can say phones were there, mobile phones started coming to the market, but they were not smartphones. They were only an extended version of pager, and only a feature was added that you can make call wherever the signal, the network was available. But when the smartphones started coming to the market, people could see that these phones are able to use the various internet facilities apart from the phone services. So thereby they need not need to sit at a place which was happening earlier to access the internet. They could access internet on the move also, on the go also. So these are some of the features of Industrial Revolution 3.0. Now the present condition we are saying, or let us term it as the Industrial Revolution 4.0. All of you can look around ourselves. Uh, this is what is prevailing in the world. This is referred to as cyber physical production systems in related to communication networks, smart IT. Let us forget about everything. If you are looking live at the session today, right now, at any place, wherever internet signals are there, either using your desktops or smartphones, whatever we are discussing, that you can see it there. There is no need for you to be physically present here. Second thing is, whatever we are discussing, you can again revisit that by going to the cloud storage. That means a storage which is being built up, and it will hold your data or various kind of informations for large information also in a cloud computing format. What are the features now? Efficiency. That means whatever items I have are efficient. That means they will deliver their functionality as has been produced by the manufacturer. Second is, organizations nowadays cannot say that in order to increase our bottom line, that is profits, I have to increase the sales value. No, that may not happen. But one thing is there which can happen in the hands of the organization is, let us increase the productivity. That means reduce the waste, thereby create more value for the organization. Second is knowledge sharing. Whatever technicalities, skills we have that have been shared, and decision making has become an important part here. If anything trouble goes up, we try to find out alternative solutions and choose the best one as our decision and implement it. We monitor it and reassess it whether it is giving us better result or not. Cost reduction. Now, when I say cost reduction, it is not that uh, buying the items cheap or getting lower quality items at a lower price, thereby getting better bottom line. No, that is not acceptable. What we can do? We can go for R&D, research and development, and we can have technological advancement in the various input items, which will permanently reduce the cost of production of an item. For example, in the earlier days, most of the cars, vehicles, bikes, any product you think of, aeroplanes, they were mostly made of iron, which was not durable, costly, having huge weight, thereby consuming more power, etc. But with the advent of aluminum, which were replacing this iron parts, the various machines have become what? No, less bulky, less weight, consuming less energy. So cost reduction is a permanent, we can say, decrease in the cost due to advent of new technologies. Sustainability. Nowadays, companies think of how they can sustain themselves in this competitive world. In order to sustain, they have to think about maintaining quality. They have to think about how to meet the changing features of the customers. Flexibility and customization. In earlier days, we were finding most of the products were having a particular type of items produced and which the customer were there to purchase it. However, now this has become flexible. Customer are changing their requirements, and according to their requirements, we need modification in our production. Apart from that, the world has become conscious. The various governments, most of the world governments have become conscious of the environmental factors affecting the whole world. For that, various kind of regulations are coming up, and as a corporate, we have to comply with them. In this particular juncture, every organization is striving for customer satisfaction. And profitability is the bottom line. It is not what we call it as profit. No, profitability is the bottom line. That we have to keep in our mind. Now here, let us put a little glance at some of the things happening. Nowadays, everyone is talking of big data. We know that as we are moving ahead with times, the economy is growing big, The organization is growing big, the nation is growing big in terms of population, needs, etc. So the data is also becoming very big. So big data refers to data sets that are too large or complex to deal with by traditional data processing application software. The data set is so big that it is not easy for the earlier days of the data processing application software. This requires a new set of techniques and technologies with new forms of integration to reveal insights into the various aspects of the business. What are the characteristics of big data? One can be volume. That means the number of data sets or the data points is very, very high. The variety is also very, very high. Velocity is the rate at which we are getting the data, or the data is increasing. It is also high. Are the data that are being gathered under big data reliable? So that is the big question. Now the data should be valuable for any kind of information extracted from it. Variability. Now the data set, due to the various techniques, or we can say lack of technical know-how, vary from time to time. Then we have volume and scalability. Now big data applications. In every sphere, even though we are unaware of, we have started using the big data. The applications of big data in various areas, I have noted down some of them. Uh, Let us say the first one is government. Nowadays, many of us are going for uh, election card, electoral card. You can think of number of data that have been there under electoral register. Think of land records in India. Like this, the government database of the big data set are there which we are using but without our knowledge. International development, like the how the economy of around 200 nations in the world is changing from time to time. What is the level of poverty? What is the satisfaction index of the people living in the various countries, etc. All these are big data. In finance, forget about the financial sector in total. Think about a bank called as, suppose in India, State Bank of India. You can think of the number of accounts, the banking products, the banking, we can say, customers that are being handled by SBI. Healthcare, similarly, you can think of the health cards, the health insurance, etc. In education, you can think of India as a country when we are having a unified educational system as we are going to have, how big the data set will be. Similarly, we have application in marketing, media. What are the challenges and scope of big data? First is another challenge is representativeness. Are the data representing the thing that we are searching for? Will they give us the correct results? That means ability to generalize. Is there any excess data that we are collecting and we are moving away from our purpose? And the various scope of big data, the source, the storage, the search engines, the transfer of data, data capturing, analysis, sharing, and updating. When we are talking about the benefits of big data, we talk about fighting poverty. For a welfare state, we can say the basic objective of the government or the authority of the land is to eradicate poverty. That means people will not be deprived of basic food, cloth, and shelter. For that, we require pinpointed information or information. Uh, Once we have the information, we can see how many are below the poverty line, and if we take various kind of steps, developmental steps, how they will benefit from it. Second, you can have the labor market. Third, digital economy. All of you now know that most of the people are using the digital economy in our nation. You can have through your smartphones the bank account in your hand. You can transfer money, you can pay bills, you can send money, receive money, etc. And other benefits are there for big data. Apart from big data, another aspect we shall be putting a glance is cloud computing. It is the on-demand availability of computer system resources like data storage and computing power without direct active management by the user. Uh, just now we are discussing about, suppose we try to get information, certain information about the electoral records of the government. So what we do, we try to access the portal of the government, which is giving the various aspects of electoral records. So without managing that also, we can get information. The various service models are the infrastructure, the platform, and the software. Cloud computing can be private. Private means it is only maintained by a service provider for a single organization. We can have public cloud computing. That means a service provider is giving computational facility to all people who are there in the vicinity or in the encompassing area to use the computing facility. And if we are offering both the things, it becomes a hybrid type of cloud computing. So a good cloud computing requires self-service, network access, resource pooling, elasticity, and measured service. Nowadays, if you are using data packages from any of the network, you can see whatever service you are using regarding data, immediately after data usage, it will be giving you a message. You have used up this much data. And role of cloud computing is making the ease of storing and also regenerating the information. We have lots of advantages of cloud computing, and finally you have lots of other developments that are cropping up in our present era, which one can go through, like artificial intelligence, etc. So with this we'll try to end our session. Thank you.